minutes after. I don't see why we should delay, because we have lots of things to talk about in only 15 minutes.
Now less.
So this is nominally a panel where I interview the official artists of Boskone 52. Mostly I'm going to try to make fun of them.
Yes, it's supposed to be an engaging conversation.
And is that what it says? Oh,
That's
see,
what it
they
says.
promised an engaging conversation. An engaging discussion about engagement.
It really is just a conversation.
Well,
There are various oddities that go bump in the night.
why don't we start with one of the paired questions that I suggested to you. I know the two of you met at Boskone. Tell us about that.
Wendy and I she lived at the time in Peavey, I lived in Beverly, and we bought art supplies, real quick. We bought art supplies at, believe it or not, the store we now own, a store called the Art Corner. And the store owner said, hey, there's a woman in Peabody who does this type of stuff, and then when she went in, hey, there's a guy from Beverly who does this type of stuff. And we just never actually met until Boskone in '82, and I saw her name tag, and long story short, I walked up and said, are you Wendy Snow? And she basically looked at me like, who the F are you? And we started, over the weekend we met, we talked, and one thing led to another. And we lost touch with one another. And I think
I was coming out of Raiders of the Lost Ark, my friend, and Chuck was going in. So we exchanged phone numbers, and then went on a date, and a month later we asked to get married.
Yep.
And we got married Halloween in '83.
We've both been miserable ever since.
Because he said to me, pick a date, and I said, I don't care, I'm not a June bride person, so, I don't care, pick a date out of the hat. And he said, well, I figured that it would either be April Fool's or Halloween, because it would either be a joke or a horror show.
Okay, enough about domestic bliss. Question for each of you separately, I suppose, is what kind of schooling did you have? And what was your experience there? Did you learn anything useful? Have you used it consciously in your work, or is it just background?
I pretty much, when I went to art school, at the time, had in my mind what I wanted to do. I went to the Art Institute of Boston, and I wanted to do book covers, magazine covers, and when I got there, I became very disappointed because, no, you do that your second year, it's foundation, and I was like, no, I want to do this, and like, no, you can't do it. And I'm kind of thinking, look, I'm sorry, I'm paying for this. I should be able to do what I want to do. So in between time, I always had an interest in book cover artists like Jeff Jones, Frank Frazetta, Roy G. Krinkle, and all the others. So more and more, that work influenced what I was doing. I started to more and more just teach myself. I bought myself oil paints, started to teach myself, took a year off in between going to school, had a year off in between because I couldn't financially afford going back the second year. When I went back my second year, I said, okay, look, you guys told me second year I could start to do this. And it was still like, no, you really can't. And I just felt very, once again, frustrated, very, not happy. So I left. My mother was crushed at the time, and this or that. And in between time going to school, I would go to Newbury Street. I would go to all the different galleries in Newbury Street. Real quick, I went to the Vaux Gallery, and I saw they're one of the most prestigious galleries on Newbury Street, one of the longest histories of family-owned galleries in Newbury Street. And I had the luck and the fortitude, to go in and see. One time I went in and I got to see between 20 and 30 original N.C. Wyeths. Another time I got to go in and see over 20 or 30 original Maxwell Parishes. And I started to realize I was learning more going to Newbury Street, going to museums, looking at the original paintings there than I was in art school. So I went home and one thing led to another, I just continued to teach myself how to work because I just wanted it bad enough.
Okay, I went to the School of Art and Design on Newbury Street, and my experience was totally different. I went there because I wanted to learn comic book art. And at the time, nobody was teaching comic book art. And so I basically talked to the head administrator, and we kind of made a comic book art curriculum because one of the teachers was Bob Stewart. I don't know if you're familiar with Bob Stewart. He was very well known in the comic industry back in the day. He just passed this year. Between the two of us, we started a science fiction illustration So it was a very positive experience for me, and it taught me a lot of working with different media rather than just one. And so I basically started him into painting in acrylics, switching from oils, which are stinky and messy and
Take time to
dangerous for you. So, so then he took the acrylics right away, and he started painting much better than I could in acrylics at the time. I think I'm getting closer, but.
Okay, so continue, Wendy. Since you went to school for it, tell us the story of your comic.
Oh, yes. Well, in the late 80s, early 90s, there were two movies. Well, first of all, when I was a kid, I had two favorite TV shows that I would not miss. One was Star Trek, and original Trek, and the other one was Dark Shadows. I had to rush home from school and watch Dark Shadows every day. And then in the late 80s, Lost Boys and Near Dark came out. And they both were just like, oh yeah, the vampires. And so I started my own vampire universe, I guess, my own species of vampire, and came up with the Nice Children. We were the guest artists at Nikon in like 1990, we think, somewhere around there.
Late 80s.
Late 80s. Well, I was writing a novel about the Nice Children, and I had a short story, and instead of doing an artist demonstration of painting or drawing, I read the short story. And Steve Bissett said to me, if you do that in the style of some of the drawings that I had in the art show, which were Prismacolor pencil on black mat board, so it was a colored background, and then I painted, I drew with the pencils over it. I will buy that story for my magazine called Taboo, he said. And then he got me into Fantico Enterprises, publisher out of Albany, and they published a series of my comics, and then we had a falling out, and Millennium Publications picked it up, and then the independent market in the comic books crashed, and so Nice Children went away. But I'm still working with them. I have a full story downstairs that you can read, the original panels, and I'm writing stories about them, and other things that I'm writing about too, because I do have to.
Okay, back to Chuck. What is lowbrow art?
Okay. Okay, this is my definition. I've got to read it because I'm sorry, I can't memorize it. Lowbrow art / pop surrealism. Take Tex Avery, Warner Brothers cartoons, street art, Mad Magazine, taxidermy, skateboards, Japanese anime and toys, tattoos, surfing culture, Disney, pinstripe artist Von Dutch, car artist, car manufacturer Ed Big Daddy Roth, psychedelic rock posters and album covers, pinup art, comic book art, biker art, punk rock, science fiction, tiki, and anything else you can think of, put it in a blender and enjoy. It is all of that. It really was an explosion, and it really did in the late 90s, early 2000s. It really has revolutionized art. I don't know if any of you have ever seen it. Look up Mark Ryden, R-Y-D-E-N, Todd Shore.
Juxtapose magazine.
Juxtapose magazine.
The best magazine ever.
High fructose.
Yeah.
It really became a shot in the arm to a lot of up-and-coming artists, some established artists who really didn't have a title to describe their work, and some of the stuff is just jaw-dropping. It really, like I said, it just, to me, revolutionized a lot of stuff that's going on, and actually it's worldwide at this stage.
I remember Big Daddy Roth from the 60s. Rat Fink,
Yep.
cars, crazy animal.
In fact, one of the artists that worked for him was Robert Williams,
Right.
who was basically known as, lack of a better phrase, the grandfather of lowbrow
You've got a
art.
couple things in there in your list, and that was graffiti art.
Yep.
And the comics, the Zap comics and
Zap Comics, Underground Comics, and Underground Comics.
Robert Crumb.
Yep, Chrome is huge.
Robert Williams was in there too.
Yep.
Okay, let's get back to a question for the pair of you. Tell us about Salem in October.
Insanity. It's insane.
let's see, was this the 35th anniversary, I think, of Haunted Happenings?
Yeah.
Every October, the city sponsors a huge Halloween festival, culminating in Halloween night, and there are millions of people who come to Salem over the course of a month. And on Halloween, there's 100 to 200,000 people
In the city.
in the city.
It's like Mardi
They
Gras.
concentrated as best they can downtown to, keep it under control, but it's like Mardi Gras, but it's a month-long Mardi Gras, and it's great. I mean, Salem would dry up and blow away if it wasn't for
And a lot of the surrounding towns
haunted
as well.
happenings, except that most of the residents hate it, because it inconveniences everybody, it ties up the streets, there's tourists crawling all over everything. We live across the street from one of the historic cemeteries, and it just is crawling with tourists all the time. And they all come up to us and say, "Where's Giles Corey buried?" Because he's the one that was pressed to death. He was one of the accused witches that was pressed to death. All the others were hung. So pleasant. It's like, he's not here. He's in Peabody, they think, because he was accused of being a witch, and he did not confess. So they would not. They killed him, first of all, and they would not bury him in hallowed ground. So he's not in a graveyard, not a church graveyard. They think that he is in his family plot in Peabody, which used to be part of Salem. But yeah, it just takes over the whole city. It's great. We love it.
And you run Terra Fantasies, an art show every year from that month.
Basically, how Terra Fantasies began, back in about '92, I took part in a art show that was run at the time by Salem Art Association. I'm trying to remember what they were.
Art Salem.
Art Salem, thank you. And
We both took part.
I'm sorry, you didn't. I apologize. I didn't leave you out. Another bad one on me. And I displayed some of my fantasy art, horror art, science fiction art, and there was a local store owner by the name of John Flaherty. And he really liked it, really enjoyed it. We started talking about stuff, this or that, and he owned a jewelry shop that had some spare room. One thing led to another, and through the summers we were talking about it, we were both saying, gee, why doesn't someone do a Halloween art show? Why doesn't someone do a Halloween art show? And John said, well, during the month of October. And so he said, look, I've got some extra space. I'm willing to give this a try. Do you and Wendy want to do it? So for about 10 days, the last 10 days of October in '92, actually the title was Masterpieces of the Macabre. And it worked out well. Pieces sold. He was happy with the response. We were happy with the response. And through that winter that year, he came up with the title Terra Fantasies. And from what we understand, when he retired, he gave us full control of Terra Fantasies. And from what we've been able to track down, Terra Fantasies is the longest running month-long art show in the United States. Halloween art show, my apologies. Halloween art show in the United States, and will be coming up on our 23rd year. And when we first started doing it, basically, in all honesty, one of the only things to do besides looking at, either the Witch House or the Witch Museum or the House of Seven Gables was haunted houses. And we had a guest book out, and people sign it, name, address, and all that. And what was great was we actually started to get people to say, it's nice to see some culture amongst all the haunted houses. It's nice to see, and we have people that have come to this now 10, 15, some for the 22 years we've been doing it, and every year they buy something, and it's the one thing they look forward to every single year they come to Salem. The other thing that's interesting about it is each year we have to rent an empty storefront. So it almost becomes like, where's Waldo? Because they come to the city of Salem, where's the art show? So they go looking all around, asking all the different store owners, and once they find us, there's much joy and rejoicing.
Yeah, because we do purchase an ad in the Haunted Happenings Guide, which is the official kind of guide that everybody, all the tourists use to find all the attractions. And that comes, the ad is due in August. That's way before we have a location. So it's just a location to be announced. And then when we get a location, then they put that on their website and they put it on their blog and everything like that. But you have to look for us because there's really no other way of getting it out within a month, within just a few weeks into the ads. But yeah, we're going to talk more about that tomorrow. This afternoon.
Well, this afternoon at 4 o'clock, we'll have a panel discussing more in depth, more in detail on Terra Fantasies.
I've always thought that once you found the actual location, you could hire somebody with a sandwich board and just walk around town.
Well, we've actually kind of done that.
We sort of do that with people walking around handing out flyers.
Okay, another one for each of you individually. I know artists can be bored with this, but some audiences, and I, would like to hear about your influences. What other artists have had significant influence on your work, either in, this is my list, style, approach to the art, subject matter, choice of media, or even in simple motivation, and keeps you going?
You first. Ladies first.
Oh, well, because I wanted to do comics from an early age, I was a Marvel girl, not DC. Although I read some DC comics. And it was, it was all the John Ramirez and Sal,
You see,
not Sal.
John Buscema.
John
John
Buscema.
Buscema.
John Romita.
No, I said John Ramirez already, and John Buscema.
Right.
And Severance,
Yep.
and when they did King Kull. And then when I first laid eyes on my first issue of Conan the Barbarian, number 13, with Barry Smith, before the Windsor, that was it. I was just like, oh my God. And then I had to read everything, Conan. And then I started reading everything Howard, and I just loved it. And he was probably one of the biggest influences, because when Barry left, it wasn't the same. And then Red Sonja showed up, and Frank Thorne doing Red Sonja. And then I discovered the conventions through that, and became, I made a Sonja costume, and became one of the Red Sonjas in the look-alike contests. I was the blonde one, not now. And, there was that. And then other, painters and things, and there was always, Turner's my favorite. Joseph and William Lloyd Turner. I went to the MFA with my parents, and my favorite painting in the whole world is Turner's The Slave Ship. And around the corner every time I go to the MFA, I'm not worried. I look at it, and my mother's like, it's just a bunch of yellow blobs. Why do you like that? And I was like, oh, I love it. So, there goes, whatever. Everybody has a different flavor or whatever. But, I always loved the Renaissance painters and, a lot of the early American painters. A modern stuff is fine too. I can get into the abstract expressionists and stuff. But genre fiction, stuff like that, it's the comic book artists and, a lot of the painterly illustrators. Powers, like that.
For me, early on, it was, as I said earlier, Jeff Jones, Frank Frazetta, Roger Frankel. As time went on, Barry Smith and Michael Whalen, Barclay Shaw. And then, as I started to branch out, once again, Wyeth, Parrish, Jamie Wyeth, Andrew Wyeth, NC Wyeth, David LaFell, who is a brilliant still life and portrait painter. As I said, Robert Williams, Todd Shore, Mark Ryden, guy known by the name of Pusshead, Beksinski, DS, Max Ernst, Rene Magritte, Dali. Also another big influence for me has been music. And one of the biggest influences, even more visually, but for helping me get in the mood, for helping me think, for helping me, lack of a better phrase, to get in the zone. I've listened to a particular band by the name of Tangerine Dream for over probably 40 years. A lot of it's electronic music, Klaus Schulze, also heavy metal music, Metallica, Sepultura, classical music. I really find a lot of times when I'm working, in some respects, music becomes a bigger influence than the visual, because I'm trying to work out my own visuals, what I want to do, what I want to say, what mood I want to create. And listening, even more than, seeing what somebody's done and what the technique they used, what process and all that is one thing, but then you've got to sit down and you've got to put that on paper, on canvas, on whatever, and to help transition to get that. I really find there's a lot of times I'll just go home from my day job, put the stereo on, and that's it, the hours fly by. Absolutely.
Okay. So what are you working on now, kids?
Me first. I guess it's the influence of Salem and all that. for a number of years now, I've been big into collecting vintage Halloween art. I absolutely love it. I love the imagery. And what I mean by that is I don't know if any of you have ever seen some of the artwork from the postcards from about 1900, 1908, 1911. Some of the imagery that was imported from Germany in the 20s, in the teens, in the 20s, and the 30s. There's two companies in America, Dennison and Beistel. A lot of Halloween art up until about the 50s. Halloween, when it really first started, really wasn't for kids, it was for adults. And a lot of the imagery was a little more threatening, a little more dark, lots of graphics, lots of detail. And by collecting it and seeing what was out today, which is geared more towards kids, it's more cutesy, to me it's lost its edge. And I once again, since you've a broken record here, no one was doing that anymore. And from collecting the postcards, I mean, I'd see a few people doing it, but it didn't look like that. So I sat down and I did a couple of years ago I did 31 postcards, one for each day of October, influenced by that. And since then, I've more and more become influenced. And basically, I'm right now more or less doing Halloween. The other big influence is H.P. Lovecraft. I don't know why, but to me, no one writes like him. No one writes, it's cosmic horror. So how do you visualize and do cosmic horror? And you can see 10 artists come up with 10 variations of what either the creatures or the characters look like, and they're all right. Because he writes, he visualizes, he gives you details to a point, but there's a lot of room for your imagination to take over and for you to play with. So between the two, I find that to me it's an exhausted supply at the moment.
Well, because I love animals and we have a menagerie at home, I've always painted and drawn animals, creatures, and I started doing a black cat, official Salem black cat, but not really official because it hasn't really been, sanctioned by the city, but the black cat tours Salem. And I've been doing that poster for 10 years. Every year I do another poster where he's someplace, tourist location, or just a historic spot in Salem. And we put a poster out and sell it to the tourists. And I kind of, right now, besides every year having to produce one of these, I kind of branched off of that, and I am making what I call personalities. And it's sort of like what Alan Beck does with his mice, but I'm taking famous people or famous images or paintings or whatever and converting them into cats. So you'll see down the art show the Puss with the Pearly Eye, Edgar Allan Poe. I have a whole huge list more, and every couple of days we throw another idea onto the list. And then because we collect antiques and we have a frame shop, I also buy antique frames for the store that I clean up. I don't restore them, but I clean them up and resell them. And a lot of times they come with these people in them, these antique photographs of somebody's ancestors. Nobody knows who they are. So I said, I want to do something with these. And I started out by converting these faces into dog faces. And they put the little rubbery nose and the ears on them. But then I said, I'm going to do something more in the horror genre because of Halloween and all that stuff. And so I turned them into zombies. And I'm having a blast doing that. And that's one of my latest things that I'm doing now. And I'm painting right on an antique photograph. And I'm not going to make prints of them because the whole idea is that it's the antique photograph. Nobody knows who the person is. Sometimes it's the name on the back, but they still don't know who that person is. And then just paint right on it and make them into zombies. And it's fun, because I love zombies.
I phrased this a bunch of different ways, and we had a conversation about how to misinterpret this kind of question. And we came around to the simplest way to evoke what I want, and that's that if you won $20 million, you had no more pressures of owning a frame store, or working at a job, or doing anything else, or trying to sell your art or anything, what would you be working on?
I think I'd still be doing what I'm interested in at the time. would still just keep doing what I'm doing. Even if I never sold anything, I just have to create. I've got to do something. And I love these particular subjects I've talked about and mentioned. I would just probably continue to do it. If anything, I would have more time to do more of it.
And I agree with that, because I would probably keep doing the Black Cat touring Salem because people collect it and they like it. And I don't want to disappoint people, although this year is coming up on the 12th year and I'm thinking that's enough to do a calendar and then maybe I'll stop doing it. So I don't have to have that pressure. But at the same time, I like it. And I love painting animals and cats and wild things. And the beading that I've started to do as well. I make necklaces and bracelets and such jewelry, beaded jewelry for sale, but I do it because it's relaxing and I enjoy it. So I probably do that. But I would definitely, if I could not have to work and worry about where my income is coming, I would probably concentrate a lot on my writing. I'd probably get back to writing my Lady Lieutenant novel, and I'd finish so many writing projects that I have just for the thought of it. So I'd love to do that too.
Okay. Just for Chuck.
Trying to buy lottery tickets.
Buy lottery tickets. Just for Chuck, I have a question.
Sure.
The way I phrased it is, there's a serious ick factor about some of your paintings. What's it with the guck all over the place?
It's necessary. It's just not done unless it has it. It just, I look at it and I go, nah, it needs drool. Nah, it needs another gleam on this eye. It just has to have it.
So
It's necessary.
it's in your brain.
It's there, you better believe it. And I want to see the reaction when they go, oh my God. And it's worth it.
Okay, just for Wendy, are those fish paintings you do consciously abstract, or is it a way to sneak up on abstract?
It's a way to sneak up on abstract because I appreciate abstract art. A lot of my customers do abstract art. We belong to Marblehead Arts Association. We sort of belong to the Salem Art Association. And Marblehead, we had a painting critique panel where we'd just get together and show what we were working on, and we'd all like help each other with the projects that we're working on. And there's this fellow who did abstract. And I asked him one time, I says, why did you put that little square of orange right there? And he says, well, I don't know, and he didn't have an answer for me, but it was perfect placement for this little square of orange, and I was like, I don't know where it came from, and I can't see it when I'm painting. I'm a realist painter. So I said, if I take tropical marine fish, very brightly colored, the scale pattern and everything, and blow them up, and just focus on a section that it'll look like an abstract painting. But I always leave a little bit edge of a fin or an eye or something so you can figure out that eventually that's a fish. Because that's the way that I can do abstract. And it's kind of this macro view. I actually did it with some minerals too, like agates and things, right? Macro down, so you get the patterns of the way the color and then the gleams on it and stuff, because that's how I can do abstract.
Okay. So again, separately for each of you, what have you done so far that you're most happy with?
I have certain pieces that I've done through the years that I would, at the moment, I would call them like a benchmark, where I finally got the quality at the time that I was looking for, I was striving to reach. A few that come to mind are a piece I did, which Wendy's father posed for. He's sitting in a boat fishing, and coming up behind him is like a Loch Ness monster. The title of the piece is I Haven't Had a Bite All Day. At the time, that was a piece that really satisfied me.
And my dad was tickled painting.
Oh, he had a ball.
Pulled out all his fishing equipment, put his hat on, his license.
When I first really started to play around with doing some surreal pieces, and they started to work how I wanted. And as Wendy said, I also have an interest in abstract art. And there's a piece down in the art show that I combined, because one of those things I look at, I go, has anybody done this? And I combined an abstract painting with a realist painting. And the title of the piece is An Abstract Storm Approaches the Realist's Farm. And I was happy with that because to me, I thought I pulled what I wanted off. Lately, one of the pieces I'm real happy with, and once again, to me, I think I captured the mood. It's very Lovecraftian, and it's down in the art show. It's called The Summoning, and to me, it's sort of a snapshot of like cosmic horror. And the Halloween stuff I'm doing now. In fact, I've just started, and I'm really pleased with it. I'm exploring actually making three-dimensional Halloween items like candy containers, lanterns, and things like that. I've been having a ball doing that, and it's much like Wendy with her beading. She finds it very relaxing, and I'm sitting there with an X-Acto knife cutting all these little intricate patterns, and some people are looking at this going, you gotta be kidding me. But I find it relaxing. At the moment, that's what I'm enjoying doing. But at the same time, I'm starting to pull I need to get back to painting. I actually haven't really painted in about a year. I've been doing a lot of pen and ink work, a lot of pencil work, and basically because I just hadn't done a lot of this. In like 20 years, I hadn't really done any pencil, and I've been very pleased with that because I'm enjoying getting back into something I haven't really spent the time doing.
Well, I think that two things that I am the proudest of or feel accomplishment with is the Knight's Children comics. Because I put out 20 issues in 2 years.
Yes.
So, I was home every night, make supper, clean up, and then at the drawing board. Every night, every waking moment, writing the stories and then getting the work out. And it's like, wow, I did that. Plus holding a full-time job. It's like when you're Marvel Comics doing the comic books, that's your full-time job, so you get issues done all over the place. But the second thing that I'm really most proud of, the painting that's downstairs, the Mr. Midship and Hornblower painting. Now, the faces and everything, to me, they look like the actors from the A&E series, because that's what I based them on. They look great, whatever, but I can do faces. I have no problem with that. What I'm most proud about that painting is the ship in the background and the water. Those are the first time I've ever painted a ship, and I ever painted water that really looks, to me, like ocean water. And that's the first time I did it, and I've never really had an interest in doing it. But then, I just got got drawn into the whole naval historical thing from the Hornblower series and other things, and I'm just really proud of that because it wasn't something that was fantasy or science fiction. It's a ship in water.
So how did each of you get started? What did you do earlier in your careers?
Careers or lives?
I'm thinking of artistic activities.
Because I always drew and I always wrote. When I was a little kid, one of my earliest memories is I took an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper and I folded it up and cut it. And then I wrote this little story that I also drew the drawings for, and it's gone. It's like, I think I gave it to my parents. Didn't keep it, I don't think. And I've always just done that. I wanted to be a biologist or a veterinarian or zoologist and started taking some classes for that. And then I'd go home and I'd draw or sculpt or whatever. So I said, all right, I'm going to do that. And I always had an interest in science fiction and comics, so I took classes for that. And we both got work from Aboriginal science fiction. That's one of the first professional projects that we got. And it just went from there.
Anything to add to that, Chuck?
Pretty much the same thing. I had always had an interest in drawing. Through my uncle at the time, he introduced me to, and in fact, that's probably some of the first experience I had with art was probably the art, the artwork and the influence of series of like Ed Big Daddy Roth. I can remember sneaking down as a child when Outer Limits was on, when The Twilight Zone was on, when One Step Beyond was on, and watching that. I've always had an interest in that, and I've just always, as I said earlier, whether I was paid for it or not, I've got to draw. I I've got stuff in my head, I've got to get it out. It sounds, I just have to. I just have to.
When my mother would call, occasionally she'd say to us, "Oh, you're working at your hobby." It's like, no, it's not a hobby. And it took forever. In fact, actually, Chuck actually kind of yelled at her one time because she said that.
I still feel bad.
It's not a hobby. Well, she doesn't say it anymore because she realizes it's a second career right now. I mean, eventually we'd love it to be a first career, but, you know, we'd be happy with that being that too. So, yeah, I mean, I will retire and sell my store or just close my store, but I will never retire from creating.
Absolutely.
Unless I physically can't do it because I can't hold a pencil, but maybe I'll learn to with my mouth. I don't know. Yeah, glue it to the forehead, you know. So it's not a career, it's not a job, it's your life. And in fact, my mother also said one time, I said to her, I probably wouldn't have married Chuck if he wasn't an artist, because I had boyfriends who were not artists. And, you know, eventually I was like, this isn't what I want. And she said, well, that's like marrying him for his money. I was like, no. It's marrying him because we have similar interests and because we can help each other and better ourselves, you know, become better as joined together than the separate parts.
If I may add to that, that was one of the driving forces, seriously, when I asked her to marry me. Because I had met someone that would understand what the hell I wanted to do, and I understood what the hell she wanted to do. And that, in my head, was well over half the battle. That's a very big thing. Having someone get what you want to do, understand, can use as a soundboard, can use as a mirror, and if you're having a tough time, you can go to them. If they're having a tough time, they can go to you, and they can get, even though the interests on certain things may be all over the place, you still have that base and foundation that you're an artist, you're a creative person, and will understand and support what the hell you're trying to do.
Speaking of what the hell you're trying to do, we talked for a while about what most artists come up with if they're trying to promote themselves, called an artist statement. And I read up on it because I had never actually heard about this very much. It seems to be an essential part of an artist's promotion. It's an introduction to why and how you make your art. How do you answer when someone says, what's your artist statement? You don't have to give the
No. I'll tell you, right now I'll use these two adages. A number of years ago, when we first joined Marblehead Art Association, we had to submit a portfolio of pieces and basically what you just said, an artist statement. And I did one thing that I found out afterwards you weren't supposed to do. You're supposed to have submitted 4 pieces that were similar. I submitted 4 that were all over the place. And my artist statement basically was, here are 4 paintings. They say paintings are worth 1,000 words. This is 4,000 words. I'm done talking. The other thing I've always felt, and I strongly feel about art, is if you create something and it doesn't get a reaction, why the hell would you do it? I've always felt it's got to have a reaction, whether it be, oh my God, or oh, that's wonderful. I don't care what it is. And a lot of people, you know, you hear like, you know, sofa-sized paintings or this or that, and these art shows. And my attitude is, you know, you want something that goes with the furniture. You know, it looks nice over the couch. I want to create something that eats the goddamn couch. I don't want you to live on the furniture. I want you to walk in and that's what you see. And you have someone question, what the hell did you buy that for? And that to me is, and I mean it, if you're going to create something, you're making a statement. Well, make a statement. And I still strongly believe that. That's how I look at it. I guess that's my artist statement.
And I despise artist statements because to me it's just the artist being a blowhard and just talking about themselves and blowing themselves up. And, you know, it's that. I can't stand it. So I just kind of muddle through. It's like, you don't need all this esoteric kind of words and, you know, the ambiance and the atmosphere of the painting and what I create and all this stuff. And it's like, no, just, you know, I paint and I draw and I write and I read.
artist statements are your art, pretty
Yeah,
much.
Pretty much.
exactly, yeah, this is what I do.
So here's a sort of technical question, I guess I can call it technical, but do you have periods of focus where everything you do is informed by some external thing or some specific about what you're doing, like color, material, historical style, or whatever? You have suddenly decide you're going to spend a year doing orange things or historical things or sea story, whatever. You have focuses like that.
Yes?
Yeah, absolutely.
Describe a few.
Yes, I don't have a blue period, because I don't go with color like Picasso, but actually in a way I do, because I do the Black Cat. There's the Black Cat touring Salem, but then there's a sub-series, which is the Salem's Black Cat Visits. And he's like visiting him at his house instead of him visiting, but it's always with the black cat, the red background. But that's just because it's got that boldness, and it's, has the kind of Halloween, I don't want to do orange because I don't want to be that obvious, but the red and the black just make it stand out. But I did a dinosaur series because I've been always interested in dinosaurs, and it was just something that was just firing me up. The fish series, because I wanted to do abstract, and I worked in the pet industry too, so I love exotic animals, and we got lunch at home. The vampires, the nautical stuff. I mean, you go through periods where there's something that interests you and fires you up, and you keep going. There's all these personalities I'm doing now. I'm excited. I got a list that I'm going to do a bunch of paintings, and eventually I'll come up with some other thing that I want to pursue. Because it's an interest.
Chuck, I know you had a pun period, but what are the other ones?
Let's see. There's the Halloween stuff. There's Lovecraft. There's my banana series, which that came about. I was doing some still lifes, and I wanted to put movement in a still life. And it sounds silly. I gave it some serious thought because I didn't want to do fruit with little eyes and cartoon legs. And I came up with two things. I came up with bananas and an ear of corn, because I could take the peel of a banana and it could be arms and legs, and it could, it could have the motions of dance, have the motions of mime, and I could also apply the same thing to an ear of corn. The ears on the corn, they could come down almost octopus-like, and once again, and then there was also the tendrils. So they could act like the silk, and it could act like, as I just said, tendrils or eyes or feelers. So to give those motion was to me intriguing and fun to do. Then there's, I created a town called Normal. That's basically where some nice looking legs flooded by today live. There's Sirloin the Burgermeister, who looks like a hamburger patty on top of a body with his hat as a bun. There is Oscar the Wiener Boy, who is a very tall, thin, elongated boy. Looks like a hot dog, and his friend Chip. There's a potato chip next to him that rolls around with him. There was Mr. Oaks, who is basically a large tree-like person with branches and coveralls out raking leaves. Flies, which were eyeballs with fly wings. And I started to, there's also a painting I did of a brain on a stump called Stumped. And the idea was that was in a town, if you can't remember where you lost something or this or that, if you get in the periphery of the brain, it tells you where the stuff was. So you can find your lost sock, you can find your lost ear, maybe if you happen to walk through this park where this is. As Wendy said, lowbrow, surrealism, some abstract art, and once again combining abstract and realism, or abstract and surrealism. A lot of Andrew Wyeth influenced paintings. I love the look of his work, the feel. Once again, as Dave said, puns. For some reason, there's just a a lot of times the title comes to me right with the image. I've been lucky in that where I'll just picture something and the title's right there. Like, haven't had a bite all day, what about that one over there? And things. Roll in the hay, which is, I did a haystack, and it's got a bread roll in it. And the title is Roll in the Hay. I did another one where I did a realistic picture of a hunk of rock, and once again a roll, and I titled it Rock and Roll. Things like that. Yeah. So, yeah, I definitely, I go through phases.
There was also the ice pick dripping blood off the end of it entitled For Your Eyes Only.
Which the real, the killer of that, no pun intended, that was bought by a woman and sent as a parting gift to her husband that she was divorcing. And I was like, oh my God.
So I think for our last question, because we're hitting the time limit on the panel, is the opposite of what I just asked about periods. And that's, do either of you have any continuity in your work, things that you draw in many of your projects, either subject or icons of some kind or techniques or whatever?
Again, with me, it's, I'm always painting animals and people, not so big on houses and architecture, and, that's one of the reasons I'm so proud of my ship and water, because it's not, I'm not a landscape painter, but I love to do people's portraits and animals' portraits, and actually I do, I don't do very many of them, but I have a sign in my store where I will do your pet portrait. That's a portrait. And I get occasionally credit to do it. But that's probably the underlying theme with me. It's people and animals and not landscapes and lunarscapes. What have you?
I think for me, and it's people are always expecting something lurking someplace in the painting.
When he does a standard still life, people are looking around the branches of the trees, looking for the lies peering out or something. It's like, no, there's nothing there.
And it just seems to be, I guess it's a look I'm known for now.
I have a painting in my kitchen called Bacon, Lettuce, and Terror, which looks like a plate, nice little sandwich, except there's this thing trying to crawl out of it. Well, I think that's the end. We're supposed to stop now. So thank you very much for coming.
Thank you all very much.
Charles.
Appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed it.
Any questions?
Yeah, anyone
Yeah,
have
sorry.
questions or
Ask
anything
questions
like
as long
that?
as you got time.
Anything we might not have answered, or you yourselves want to ask about anything? All right, silence is deafening so far. Thanks again.
Well, a song about never saying never and never being told what you can or cannot do. This is one of us. A 1, 2, 3. Before I got to fighting, or when fighting got to me, I looked to find examples on the field of chivalry, and I saw mighty arms, much stronger than my arms could ever be. So I thought perhaps that field was not for me. But still I stayed and watched the fighting, till one figure stood apart, in armor newly fashioned, and a helm more pot than art. But each blow was thrown with honor and the lightness of the heart. So I took that step which soon became a start. 'Cause she was not the biggest fighter, nor one to raise a fuss, but I remember being proud that she was one of us. And we might never stand together in a shield wall side by side. Because of her I lift my sword with pride. She was ladylike and lively, not the type you would expect, with a braver heart than many and a slot shot to respect. And I guess she'd once decided this was where she'd like to be, and I thought if she could do it, why not me? 'Cause she was not the biggest fighter, nor one to raise a fuss.